Hello and welcome to Hopeful Consciousness. It's day 10 of my 2-week challenge to help you have a spiritual and awakened moment. So join me from the sunny delights of my storage area again. That's the little room right on there that I rent out for all my furniture bits and bobs. It's quite quiet at a weekend here, so I thought I'd come to the car park, and it's just around the corner. So yeah, the last few days I've been talking a lot about scientific content and things like that that really helped me go through a change and a shift in beliefs. You know, you can get very locked into a way of thinking that this is the world, this is how it is, there's not much I can do to change it, and things along those lines. But when you get so many of your, for me, scientific beliefs challenged, for other people it'll be spiritual beliefs and other things like that challenged, you can really start to look at things with a far more open mind and build yourself almost back up again from a place of openness and accepting. You know, it's and a loving place as well. So I do find it very interesting that we think in our, you know, with our little brains that we've got here, which are amazing, powerful things. That said, the idea that we could even begin to comprehend the complexities of the cosmos and the universe and understand it all is really naive thinking. You know, especially the more I look at this stuff, it's almost like the universe is trying to understand itself through us, really. So yeah, very interesting concept. But it allows you to come from a far more loving place and realize that, you know what, you don't need to change other people at all. It's not your place to do so. It's not your place to, you know, force opinions on other people, challenge, you know, their beliefs to that extent. You know, you, by all means, you can share information with them, but yeah, to get into arguments with people about beliefs and things, that's just it's a result of the way you've been brought up, the culture you're brought up in, the circumstances, whereabouts in the world, you know, what your parents were like, what the environment was like, and things like that. So yeah, that brings me on to the workshop that I went to with Ryan Pinnock. It's a Super Genius workshop, and basically that one went in to talk about something called the Enneagram, which is all the different personality types that people express. And it's, if you look at it up online, it's best described as almost like a circle with points around it, and there's 7 different personality types that people have. And you can see it with, you know, myself and with other people around. They'll often display a strong characteristic of a particular personality type. Interestingly, we are all different personality types at different points in time. So, you know, pigeonholing someone as a particular type of personality type isn't particularly serving of the situation, but it helps you get a grasp and be more loving and compassionate to where they are, really, and see how you can then take a different position to change the way you react to situations. So I'll give you an example here. So a fair bit of my personality type you could classify as probably, I think it's the investigator on the thing, the matrix. I think that's number 5. So I often like delving into things, hence why, you know, I quite like looking at all this science stuff and things like that. I really like investigating things, learning things, finding out that stuff. Now, that's not always going to be my personality type, and it also shows how, when you get emotionally charged, that personality type will change into a different one. So, for example, if I get highly emotional, I would then go into a high stress situation if I'm based on this investigator sort of number 5 personality type, and I would then become the challenger. So, and I've done this in the past. I'm not saying it's a great characteristic to have, that you start to challenge people. You start to, sort of say, yeah, I've investigated this, and I'll challenge your beliefs on something, which, as I'm learning more and more, is, it's not the smartest thing to do. And then from a low stress situation, I would then become the enthusiast, which is, you can often see with some of the stuff I do, I really go deep into a subject and become really enthusiastic about it. And again, that's just one of my various different personality traits that I exhibit for quite a bit of the time. I could point to numerous friends and try and, I'd say the majority of the time, you're functioning from a different type, and I can see that. And then you can see when they get in a high stress situation why they're bouncing around this sphere. Some people get very depressed, anxious in certain situations, with different personality types. Some people just kind of get angry, and it all shows you and helps you understand where you come from, where others come from, and it really just helps you become more of a loving person, really. So I do highly recommend Ryan's Super Genius workshops. They really did help me a lot. One of the aspects that we went through quite a bit was our vision for the future, and that's interestingly where I came up with the vision for this stuff here. So doing this sort of YouTube stuff and delving into what it is to be human, what our potential is, and things like that. It's just a kind of a passion really for me. So I decided to start this channel really, and it all came out of that. The property stuff is fantastic. It's helping me have a living and helping me with the income stuff. But as well as that, you want to do something that really lights your fire. I'm not saying the property stuff doesn't on certain levels, and it appeals to certain parts of my personality type, absolutely. But on other levels, this looking into human potential, delving into the science, the mysticism stuff, also appeals to another part of who I believe I am at a core kind of level. So I really do highly recommend his workshop. I found there's one really interesting aspect that you do a performance in the workshop, and you've got to try and get 30 people on the same page to do a performance together. And that is quite a funny thing, because you try and attempt to do it when you first get there and you don't know these other people you're trying to do, and everyone is trying to impose their will on others. Then you see the other people with different personality types who are afraid of conflict, will shy away from things and not challenge others that are a bit more bossy, that are trying to do stuff. And then you get people that want to stand up for the people that are being kind of quiet or challenge the authority figure for the people that are talking more. It's really fascinating to see, and it was a complete mess. On like the first day you do it, it's such a complete mess. A lot of people were really genuinely upset by what happened, and then you go through this process of understanding where you are on this Enneagram, and the different personalities and why they respond in those ways. And it brings you back to almost, I think it was the final day where you do the actual performance, and again only have a very short time to organize it, but you're doing it all from a very loving space. Instead of saying this is what I want you to do, you're just saying this is what I would like my performance to be like. And then by making it more about just yourself and coming from a loving place, others can contribute to that, but you're not stepping on anyone's toes, so to speak. You're not forcing your will on anyone. You're not trying to control anyone. If someone says, I'm going to do a performance here, and I could see potentially, a couple of people assisting me as characters in the background, and then you go around the circle, with people discussing. That will resonate with some people as to whether they want to be the person that helps that person. Sometimes they may not get any volunteers, that's perfectly cool as well. But yeah, really interesting seeing this shift in people over just a 5-day workshop of how you can become so much more loving, and approach things from a far better place, really. So yeah, absolutely highly recommend it. I'll go into a few more bits that he talked about on the workshop, because by all means it wasn't just limited to that. One of the books he talks about, which I've read after the workshop, the Kybalion, which talks about as above so below, and as below so above, is one of the key sort of teachings from that book, and it's part of the way you can break out of the cycles of these emotions and things that are uncovered in the workshops. How you can rise above an emotion, realizing that you're going to swing from being happy one day to being a bit low another day, because it's a cycle, but you can break out of that cycle by raising yourself above it. Very interesting point. So yeah, the course is Super Genius by Ryan Pinnock. That one's the emotional course, so I highly recommend that one. But yeah, going back to the point about our beliefs and things like that, now that I've sort of mentioned all the aspects I uncovered on that course, it brings you to a very interesting concept. And there's a quote which I really love, that's often misquoted as being by Nelson Mandela, but it's not. I think it's by Lady Marianne's her first name, I think. And I can't remember the entire quote off the top of my head, but it literally talks about our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but it's that we're more powerful than we can possibly imagine, and not to shy away into the darkness, and that by shining our light we are unconsciously showing others that it's okay to shine their light as well. And that really does come back to the root of how we can solve a lot of the problems on this planet, this world, and things like that. If once you start to delve into things, which I really have been doing quite a lot during this lockdown period, you come to a conclusion that virtually every aspect of civilization has some major problems with it. Has the environment's got issues with it, healthcare system's got issues with it, freedom of speech is currently having a lot of issues with it, and things like that. You could look in, I've just spent days looking at various different topics, and every topic I touch, you just see the effects of where it's gone wrong through, corruption and other things like that. And you could literally spend 100,000 lifetimes trying to solve all the problems on this planet, and you would probably only just scratch the surface of it. And that's not the way to solve these problems, by trying to control others, impose your beliefs on them, your will on them in some way to hope that you are some benevolent being that can impose an all-powerful, I know best and this is the way it should be done. That's not the way to solve the problems. It's by celebrating your uniqueness. It's by really shining the light and becoming the most loving being you can towards anyone else, understanding that it's absolutely fine for others to have different opinions than yourself, and you can still love them much the same, to unconditionally love everyone. And by becoming this example of effectively just love, that's how things get changed, because people will see your example of, wow, that person is a joy to be around, that person lights my fires up. I want to be more like that person. How can I do that? And then their own inquisitive mind will look down the avenues, like I have done for some of these aspects that my curiosity was sparked by that first book, and so just by sparking someone's curiosity into how to become a more loving person, so to speak, more spiritual, more open, that's all it takes. And if everyone just does that on their own individual level, by almost shifting your consciousness into a loving state, that's how the world's going to change, really. And you'll be surprised that it takes so few people to do that than you might think. I think they've worked out from certain experiments and things like that, it's actually around 1% of the population. And they've done this with some of the meditation things that I talked about in the past, where crime rates have massively lowered just by a group of people meditating. The key number seems to be around 1%. So if 1% of the population can just become these amazing loving beings that unconditionally love people, you know, celebrate uniqueness and things like that, what a world that we'll live in. It'd just be fantastic. And just by seeing that example, all of the others that are stuck in the systems that we talk about just have their eyes opened, and they'll start to unconsciously shift in that way without knowing that they're doing so. Yeah, it's quite a cool place to be. So anyway, I hope you join me for tomorrow's little talk. I suspect that will be carrying on with things like the Kybalion and other topics, but we shall see. Okay, thanks for joining me at the weekend. I'll speak to you soon.